Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Parity.org Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Cathrin Stickney.
Good morning, Utah. 1 year ago, I stood on this stage, and I was with Josh James, as a matter of fact, and I introduced the urgency, the urgent need to bring gender parity to the top of companies, starting with VPs all the way up to the top, to the board. And since then, hundreds of executives from Utah have taken the Parity Pledge to bring more women to the top of their company. It's been amazing. And I'm happy to say that it's made such a difference in helping to close the gender gap here in Utah at the top of companies. Silicon Slopes has been a rallying force, not just in this state, but also around the world. Since 1 year ago, the Parity Pledge has been taken on no fewer than 6 continents, and more than 1 million employees now work for a company that's taken the Parity Pledge. Now, I think that's real progress. So, while we still have a long way to go, I want to thank all of you who have stepped forward and been a catalyst for change when it comes to gender parity. I can see no other way that we could have done it, because it all happened right here in Utah is where it started. So thank you for that. I'm honored to be here again today. I have 4 world-renowned experts that are going to share with us their perspectives on the impact of gender parity in their companies. So with that, I'd like to invite my panel on stage. We're going to be joined by Kamy Scarlett, who is the president of U.S. Retail and CHRO for Best Buy. We have Deanna Bass, who's the executive director for Global Diversity and Inclusion for Procter Gamble. Maria Klawe, who's the president of Harvey Mudd College, and Dan Heasman, who's the chief people officer for MongoDB. So with that, I think I'd just like to jump right in and get started.
Sure.
So Kamy, I'm going to start with you. We all know Best Buy is the largest consumer electronics business in the world. And what many in this audience probably don't know is that you have impressively reached gender parity in your organization, starting with the board, the C-suite, and throughout your company. How the heck did you do that?
Thanks, Cathrin. The Parity Pledge was a good push for us. It created a heightened focus for gender diversity across the entire company. Pleased to say, since signing the pledge, 82% of our salaried roles have female candidates in the slate, which is so critically important. But we started at the top, and it was intentional, believing that if you can't see it, you can't be it. So 50% of our board of directors, as you said, are women. General Motors is the only other Fortune 100 company that can say that. Yeah. Our CFO is a woman. All 3 of our domestic business units, they're led by women. We wanted our employees to be able to look up and see the possibility in themselves. But we had to get educated about diversity and inclusion. And that started with a reverse mentoring program that we launched across all the senior leadership, where 90% of our mentees sharing their life experiences with us, they're women. Yeah. You know, Best Buy's purpose is to enrich lives through technology. But that can only happen if we enrich the lives of our employees. Right. But we didn't want to guess our way to right. So we surveyed our 120,000 employees, asking the question, what support could we give you that would be the most meaningful in your lives? Based on their responses, we've launched a suite of benefits, most of which are unheard of in retail. 2 that I'll touch on, caregiver leave and backup childcare. So we launched caregiver leave 5 months ago, and as a result of that, 4,000 of our full-time and part-time employees are getting paid time off to care for children, a spouse, a partner, parents. It is so important and so well received. And then finally, backup childcare. That's thanks to Lynette Johnson, a department manager from our Arlington, Virginia store. She woke up one day without a sitter, and she couldn't afford to take the day off work. She brought her 4-month-old son, Logan, into the store to work with her. The entire store loved it, of course. They babysat him. Pictures went viral across the country. As a result of that, we've launched backup childcare, allowing our employees that for $10 a day when they're in a pinch, they can find a reputable sitter.
Right.
It's just
Right.
been so well received.
Yeah.
And I would sum it up by saying that Best Buy has been on an incredible turnaround in the last 6 years. You know, when you think about what we've been through, we're now enjoying 4 straight years of positive comps, and I believe it's because we've done it with a larger purpose in mind, staying focused on the employee, on the customer, and of course our CEO, who's fantastic, you know, Hubert Joly, who says often and says loudly, the goal of a company is more than just making money. It's about doing work in service of the greater good.
Great. Thanks, Kamy. Thank you so much. That's fantastic what you've done. Deanna, Procter Gamble is one of the biggest consumer goods companies in the world with more than 95,000 employees. I know that the leadership feels strongly about promoting from within, and we've all heard that filling roles that are representative, particularly at the top, of people, of women and people of color, it's difficult because there's a pipeline issue, and I'm wondering what you have to say about it, if you think that's true.
Well, you know, you and I had a great conversation when we first met about what I like to call the pipeline myth. And the myth is the kind of popular narrative today that says there just aren't enough qualified women in the workplace to fill top jobs, fill slates, fill any job. And then the second part of that is that women opt out en masse. And the third part of it is the narrative around women lacking confidence and ambition and fearing failure, right? And all of that starts to erode people's confidence in doing the work to source great female talent around the world. It is damaging when you put quality and quantity in the same sentence. It gets into the psyche of the very people who are making, hiring, promoting, staffing decisions, right? So we've done a lot of work around taking care of our own belief systems inside Procter & Gamble about the health of our pipeline. You've heard many people talking about this today. We are extraordinarily intentional about what our goals are. We're not at 50-50 parity, but we are well on our way. And that is being led by our CEO. We have very intentional hiring targets at every level and every part of our company to include the women in technology. And we're clear about targets for men and women, because when you put a target for men and you track it, it forces you to have conversations like over-delivering on that target and how that impacts your ability to under-deliver on another target. And so it is, I don't really believe in the pipeline myth. I actually believe the world is full of extraordinary, diverse talent, and that it is imperative today that we source and utilize that talent. It's good for business, it's good for the world, it's good for economies, and there's no reason in today's world that any company or any industry can't reach parity.
It's a fantastic message. I've often said similar things, that there are so many out there that just need the opportunity to do it. Maria, you're a computer scientist by training and the first woman to be president of Harvey Mudd College. Both say a lot about you and your focus on championing women in tough fields and in leadership. When you arrived at Harvey Mudd College, only 30% of students and faculty were women. And today, 50% of students are women, and 40% of the faculty are. What advice do you have for companies about how to attract and retain senior women in their organizations?
Thanks, Cathrin. So the first thing I want to say is, in addition to the progress that Cathrin mentioned, we've also seen significant growth in the number of women in senior leadership roles. So for example, I'm the first female president. Our chief academic officer is also female, first ever. And when I arrived 12 years ago, there were only 2 times when one of the academic department chairs was female in 50 years. And now 4 of the 7 academic department chairs are female, and every department has had a female department chair. So how did this happen, and how might it apply to your company? The most important thing is that this was done by the entire community. We did strategic planning in my first 6 months at Harvey Mudd, and diversity and inclusion was one of our top 6 priorities that came out of that. What we did is not difficult, and it's not expensive. You can do it too. So here are the 3 primary things. Number 1, focus on creating a culture that is engaging and supportive for everyone. And for us, that meant also changing how we taught. But in particular, every single way our institution expresses value, like our website, our recruiting materials, the stories we tell, our keynote speaker series, we make sure that every single one of those reflect the diversity we want. The second one is that we know that many women, including students, want to be in organizations where, in addition to technical skills, and we're a science and engineering, we're a STEM college, in addition to technical skills, they want to be valued for things like creativity, collaboration, and communication, in addition to technical skills. So we make sure that in everything we do, we make it clear that those are important to us as well. And so when you're recruiting, your ad should say that, your interview process should say it. And then the third one is reducing bias. We have done training for everybody involved in promotion and recruiting so that they become aware not only of their own bias and how to reduce it, but also of that in others. We all have bias. We grew up, we live in a country that has lots of gender bias and racial bias. But you can reduce the impact.
Thank you, Maria, very much. Appreciate that. Dan, moving on to you. Everyone knows that MongoDB is the database for big ideas. You're a startup that made it, publicly traded on NASDAQ, more than 1,500 employees. And like so many of the companies here in the audience today, you're committed to creating a more diverse company with women, people of color in leadership roles. And so I always say diversity is a journey of 1,000 miles that begins with a single step. What steps are you taking to create a more diverse organization?
Thanks, Cathrin. You know, taking the Parity Pledge, signing the Parity Pledge, that's one step, as you well know, we took recently. I just want to take a moment to publicly thank Deanna Friedman, NASDAQ CEO, who actually put the pledge on our radar.
Yes, they took the pledge last February, NASDAQ did, so it was great.
And, you know, Deanna had kindly accepted an invitation from our women's group to come and speak to our New York office.
Fantastic.
And as well as putting the pledge on our radar, she said something that day that has stayed with me. She was talking about benchmarks and talking about NASDAQ's performance from a diversity point of view being at or around benchmark at some point in the past. And then she paused and she said, but the benchmarks really suck. And that message has resonated with me and a lot of leaders at MongoDB. You know, we have found recently that the realization we've come to is that the core belief and passion for building a diverse and inclusive organization that really coursed through the veins of this young private company of only a few hundred people, which was, that stage was only a few moments ago as far as we're concerned, which led to the creation of lots of allied groups. It led to a group of people successfully lobbying the exec team to have embrace the power of differences added as one of our core values. More recently, it led to an upgrade of our parental leave program to be both generous and gender neutral. Our campus team almost achieved gender parity in this year's intake. Despite all of that energy and all of that commitment, we've found that it doesn't scale by itself.
Yeah.
We find ourselves today, as you said, we're a public company now. We'll go past 1,500 employees this year. We find ourselves under more scrutiny than ever before. And we've learned we need to be more deliberative than we've been before.
Yep.
We have people of color in leadership roles. We have women in leadership roles that have been traditionally occupied by men, for example.
Yep.
One of our 2 SVPs of engineering, effectively one of our 2 number 2s,
Yep.
for example. But overall, we're at benchmark.
Yeah.
And that does feel like it sucks.
Sure.
So a final step I want to wrap with that we're taking this year, I'm very excited about, is a new program we're going to launch, a sponsorship program for diverse talent. So we're going to be pairing our senior leaders with diverse talent from throughout the organization, and the primary aim of that program is going to be career acceleration.
Great. Great, Dan. Thank you so much. It's wonderful programs. I want to just take a minute to challenge everybody in this audience to join these 4 great organizations. And I wonder if I could get in the audience anybody who's a CEO or the leader, a decision maker in your company to raise your hand. This is great. I would love all of you to take out your cell phone who raised your hand and go to your browser and type in Parity.org and press the green button. It will take you 1 minute to take the Parity Pledge and join these great companies in closing the gender gap at the top. So we really appreciate it. I want to thank the panel and wonderful programs you're doing, and thank the audience. Thanks, Silicon Slopes.